And when 2027 comes, whoever manages to put together those regions and cousins and nairots that you do not want to hear will be able to take this particular victory home. That is the truth you do not want to hear. Unfortunately, unless you move to Zootopia, this is Kenya, and that is how Kenya behaves, and that's how Kenya operates. You can see what is happening. When you lose, Mount Kenya, that is a basket of votes that you've lost. We've been referring to Mount Kenya based on the number of votes that you bring into the basket. That is the reason why we've been referring to it. When you tell us about the electoral college vote, one vote is enough. That is exactly the same script we are talking about here. The number of votes that you put into a basket that comes in as a block, not divided. That is what you need to understand. I mean, this issue of the former deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, I said before here that the man needs justice. Just like any one of us here would go to court and get accused wrongly. Justice denied is something that infringes somebody's rights. Whether you like him or not, he was unjustly crucified. So if we can be able to be justly, given his right and his justice served, that would be good for humanity, not looking at it from a political direction that could lead us. It doesn't matter the amount of hate and dislike that you accumulate. Winning an election in Kenya, a presidential elections in Kenya, requires you to mobilize regionally. I keep on reminding people that it is our diversity that makes us Kenya. You cannot compare us with other people. We are Kenya because we are 45, 46, beautifully crafted by whoever the maker of this country was, different ethnicities. When you go to a small Kenya called Kisumu, Nyanza, you'll find our brothers here who speak Thoruo. They have their culture, they have their beauty, they have their everything. When you go to Mount Kenya, when you go to Eastern, you'll find their combination. People who stays there and do things in their own way. That is one thing you will never remove from Kenyans. That is one thing, that's one beauty you will never wish away from this country. The faster you understand, I personally, I have the opportunity to have visited, I would proudly say, every corner of this republic. And whenever you interact with our people from one region to another, you would understand that their view, their perception in regards to the national, interest thereof differs from one region to another. And that is what I'm telling you, you cannot ignore when you want to purport to be going for a presidential vote. At the moment, what you're trying to call is what all of us wish. But what is happening in 2027 August is not what you're trying to call. It is basically the reality on the ground and what is happening. There's a research that was done. The people who vote are not the intellectuals, are not the people you see here listening and arguing from one law to a professor to another. When you go down to the voter on the ground, when you start listening to what it is that holds, what is the emotive of them, you start realizing how far we are from the reality that you're trying to paint. I mean, and it cuts across the entire country. The understanding of our people in regards to what it is that you are saying is far. But when you start telling them about, kuna mtu yetu amekuja ametuongelesha hapa amesema hivi na hivi, because basically we are still in those particular settings as a country. Our country is set to think and behave that way. It's a culture, whether it was good or bad, that is entrenched in us. So it calls for a long time change of culture that would eventually get us to where you are telling me now. This government will go home. Not because of the high level of intellectual thinking that we want to put into. It is because of the reality of the vote that counts that ends up in the ballot. You have to look at it that way. Otherwise, if you look at it from the elite, when William Ruto was coming into power, I met a lot of people when we were campaigning for William Ruto who told me he cannot become president. This and this. But I was referring to what I'm hearing those grassroots people say. Whenever I visit any village, whenever I visit the one village from one corner of the country to another, those are the things people are telling me. So I was telling people, when those things are put together and they count, this man is going to win. And now I'm telling you today, when all those things are put together and count, this man is going home. I am a Kenyan who comes from Mount Kenya, but I'm very proud with the entire country, with its formation and how diverse we are. And I do not hide it. I see it as something that I love because I do not choose my friends based on where they come from. I mean, people are my friends. We spend time together. Our families visit each other. We have absolutely no boundaries whatsoever. I personally, Ikuwa Wambote, voted for William Ruto. I voted for William Ruto. I did not only vote for William Ruto, I campaigned for William Ruto. But he did not meet even at 10% of my expectations. We did not agree with the previous government because some things were failing. But when he came into power, he actually continued and even became worse. For example, on matters debt, if William Ruto meant good for this country, why did they not audit our debts? Why have we continued borrowing and borrowing? And why have they not addressed? And by the way, if we have to come here in another forum and discuss numbers, come prepared to even discuss numbers on how much we are losing as a country. The entire fabrics that brings a nation together in terms of even prudence and accountability has been lost with this government. We have been seeing opulence and wastage of resources. When you find yourself in a hole, we elected William Ruto because we understood the country was not in good position. I've told you this before when we met discussing the economy of this country. We knew the economy was not doing that good, and we needed a man who can turn it around, who came and told us about bottom up, Pesa Mfukoni, and things like that. It has not happened. So when somebody like Watson comes here and tells us that we hate him, how do you explain after our region amassed all its votes and rallied behind William Ruto? We cannot allow that kind of an accusation. What we are saying, Debar, is that we need to be extremely honest. Even as we agitate towards making this government go home, the government that is coming need to live to the reality that this country is not sitting pretty, is not sitting in a very good position economically. We are staring at an economic collapse. And the government that is coming need to realize that extraordinary things like stopping stealing has to be done in one way or the other. We must find ways of how to prudently utilize our taxes. Because I'm imagining the first day of a brief that will be given to the president that will come when you have been given the government expenditure and how much you need to spend versus how much you are correcting. Correcting from who? People who do not have money. A lot of wastage is happening. As I yield the bar, one employee of the Nairobi City Council is being arrested with some 215, and now we've been told is around 65 billion shillings in his house. With God did it, sign in whatever. One guy. The other day we saw an operation that collected 500 million shillings. Money enough to serve how many schools, how many hospitals. That is our biggest problem. And that is what we are saying. You have not managed to do this. You've not managed to turn the fortunes of our economy. You have not managed to turn the fortunes. And by the way, general fabric, like respect of life, respect of human rights, those things we have said again and again. We cannot forgive this presidency for disrespecting human life and pretending people being killed. So what else can we tell to a parent who lost their child and somebody then came the following day and say, pick up all this assy? Those things are very serious. And by the way, as you continue telling us, oh, we are saying one time, we're saying everything, we are telling them to account for everything since day one when they came into office. Even if you did something 3 years ago, we still remember what you did. And for those whom we are saying the United Alternative Government, it does not mean that we are saying that this is where we're going and we're not going to hold anybody responsible and accountable. No, you must come in knowing where this country needs to go. Dibar, we want to change this country. And as much as we are going to put a lot of emphasis into the presidency, Many people who are here are people of repute and positions in the society. You need to understand that we have a parliament, two houses of parliament that actually make decisions in this country. As I yield this evening, I need to say and call upon everybody to know that those houses of parliament are actually what maketh or destroys our country. Even the impeachment that we are talking about, that actually brought a lot of animosity in this country, was actually perpetrated in that House of Parliament. In the next election, as we put more emphasis on the presidency, I call upon this country to look with two eyes what happens and who get elected in the next Houses of Parliament. Because that is where men and women who are principled and who knows that they have a law in this country need to go.
Thank you.